ụlọ nsọ gị Chukwu ka anyị na-abata, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Anya bịawa ịsọpụrụ gị ugbu a, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Chukwu nna n'ụlọ gị ka anyị na-akpọ gị, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Otito na-adịrị gị mgbe niile, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike.
Otito niile dịrị Chineke, ọbasi dị elu, Chukwu obi ọma, Chidi ebere, Olisa nwa amara, ka ụzọ anyị niile ọbụla niile bụrụ ihe, ka ihe ọbụla niile anyị kpatụrụ aka bụrụ sọ mma, ka ụwa niile site n'ozi ọma anya nwụsị obi aṅụrị taa mgbe niile ebighị ebi. Ọfọ ya gazie ise. All praises to Chi the Creator, the Supreme Being, Chi the Good, Chi the Merciful, Chi the Magnificent with grace. Let everywhere of our lives be light. Let all our acts be crowned with good. And may the world prosper from our ministry, now and forever. So let it be. Amen.
Ndewo, ndewo, ndewo. Good morning. Good morning, Yudi. Mama.
Ndewo, Kyle.
Mama. Yeah, I love, you know what? I love to use mama.
Mama, yeah.
Mama, nothing but goodness. How are you, Yudi? How are you today?
I am good. I am good. Despite what's going on in the world, I am confident that today is going to be blessed, and so will be tomorrow, even though it is said that it's promised to no one. I claim it. We all claim it for ourselves. Yeah, guys,
Yes.
yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
If you believe that it's going to be a good day, it would be. And I agree with you, Yudi. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day because you still have your mind intact.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have your mind intact. Monachiso. We are one with ChinEke.
All day long.
Welcome those who have joined us and those yet to come. Welcome to another episode of Chiism Live. This is Chiism Network, and we are so excited to be here today. We've been so busy, have we not, Yudi? Oh my goodness!
Yes, I mean it's unbelievable the pace at which the blessings are coming. You know, sometimes they say be careful for what you ask for, because you might get it. Are you ready for it? That's the main thing. You know, you got your hands up, but are you ready? But when it falls in, it gets, see, blessings can be heavy responsibility.
Yes.
Then you ask for blessings, and then you get it. Then you find out with those blessings comes responsibility, because without those responsibility, the blessing is non-functional and is meaningless.
Yes.
So blessing also requires effort from every one of us.
Yes.
What you put out in the world and you pursue it, and you believe that God, ChinEke, will guide you, open the doors, bring the right relationship, along your path. If you believe in those things, then you work towards those things that you believe in. You focus your mind into these positives. And if you could get yourself to that psychological plane, you're a winner.
That's right. That's right. How you begin your day. Ndi Igbo na say ụtụtụ bụrụ sọ mama. Let the morning start, bring nothing but goodness to us. And that's you're supposed to internalize that. You're not supposed to just say it. Ụtụtụ bụrụ sọ mama. That means you're expecting, and you're asking and expecting for the day to bring nothing but goodness. Goodness follows your thoughts. What you put out there becomes reality. If you want bad things to happen, your mind will pick up on that energy, and then nothing but negativity will follow you. Even in spite of everything that's going on in the world, there's too much of it to even name. The important thing, however, is how are you feeling?
And how you're reacting to it.
Check up on yourself. Are you checking up on yourself? If I asked you today, have you checked up on yourself? Most of you would not tell me, would not know what to say. My son Nandi always tells me, Mom, tune out. You have to tune out. What does it mean to tune out? That means you're going to have to open your mind for positive information to become your reality for the moment. Because if you're opening your mind for negativity, that's when you have high blood pressure kicks in, the headaches kick in, all kinds of negative things come into your life when that's what you're thinking on. So you have to decompress from all the things that are going on. You have to inhale and exhale, and you have to ask ChinEke to intervene and handle all those things you can't handle. And in the meantime, you focus on those things you can handle. There's so much you can handle. You can handle yourself.
And another thing.
Sometimes we talk about community. We want to help community. It's good to help community, but go, Kwano.
What about you? Who's helping you?
If there are 10 people that make up that community, right? You have to ask yourself, you're one of those 10. Are you okay? Because that community is still not okay if you're not okay. So everybody in the community has to be okay before you can say community. So you have to start with yourself. In spite of what's going on, start with yourself. I was telling you, Yudi, I went outside this morning before anybody woke up. I just said, okay, I am going to be in charge of my thoughts today. I am going to determine what's going to happen to my reality today. I went outside on the deck. It was still dark, about 6:30, something like that. And nothing but the sounds of nature, the birds, all of that sort of thing, the squirrels all over the place. And I just smiled and I said, well, you guys talk to me. What's going on? How should I feel today? Of course, the chirping and all of that stuff going on. I said, boy, I wish I could. I could hear better. I could speak bird language or hear birds. What are they saying? I said, they probably say, girl, get yourself together. Forget all that stuff, At that moment, I said, I am going to be in tune with the Creator. It sounds like it's a mundane thing, or even to some people, it sounds like whatever. But you know what? That's what you got to do. That's what you have to do. You have to find that moment where Ginachiso. It's not Ginachiso. Then what does it mean? What does it mean to say Munachiso? Doesn't that mean at that moment I am one with the Creator?
Yeah.
And if I'm one with the Creator, then nothing else matters.
Absolutely.
Nothing else matters. You cannot chew. You can only chew something. What they say? You can eat an elephant. Eh? You can't eat an elephant at once, right? You can't. You have to take little bites. That's how you have to deal with life when you're challenged, when you got all this stuff going. Because if you write it down, you can fill 4 pages on all the crazy things going on in life.
Yep.
And all those things are impacting your behavior, they're impacting your health. Some people are having heart attacks because of what's
mental health, everything.
yeah, you know. But if it's in a monachiso, if you say that I'm one with the creator, then be one with the creator.
Yeah, I
That's
walk
what
with the
it is.
creator.
You know, the song that comes, the song that opens this program says, Ulo sogi chuku kaina bata
Yeah.
into your space, into your bosom, I walk in. Please, Chineke says, come on in and find peace. Now, if that's the case, all those other things don't matter at that moment. You've got to find a time in your life that you say, come and find peace.
Yeah.
There's got to be a time that we have to find peace in our
And
life.
there's something else, just kind of buttressing what you're talking about with the health and all that. There's also this idea that, you know, when you have situations that are just detrimental to you, both physically, mentally, your livelihood, everything else, your first reaction is shock, right?
Yes.
You're shocked into this, you find yourself into a new reality all of a sudden, right? Things that you didn't worry about, now you're suddenly worrying about it. I mean, that impact on you, both mentally and physically, you know, it has to just be ridiculously heavy on your soul. Even you and I are going through the same thing right now with everything that is going on. But then before we started the show today, we had a conversation. And part of that conversation was what to do now, right?
Yeah.
What to focus on. So
Yes.
it's sort of like when they say, when you're given lemons, you make lemonade,
Yes.
right? You find yourself in this detrimental situation where you're now looking for opportunities, you know, that you can glean from this situation. Because I believe that every situation, regardless of how detrimental it is, creates an opportunity for something else, right? Now, that opportunity, usually when you say an opportunity, it has to do with growth. You don't say an opportunity. I mean, when you say you have an opportunity to, you know, knock yourself out, you could do that. But most of the time when you talk about opportunities, you're talking about get yourself from dire straits to a better situation. How can I get myself out of this situation? What alliances do I have to make? Who do I need to talk to? You have to really start looking at these kinds of situations in a different light, in a different way. And once you are over the shock of finding yourself in a different reality, your next strategy should be, how do I get out of this situation? What are the resources that I need, both spiritual and otherwise? And then, of course, you tap into, I am one with ChinEke, Munachiso, I walk with ChinEke. If you set your mind to it, it becomes a reality. Start looking for opportunities now. Give you an example. What's going on in the world? You find so many different communities now uniting, something that they had difficulty in doing. So the situation in the world today has now created opportunity for a lot of disunited people to unite in all kinds of efforts to make their communities better. What I really see with what's going on in the world today now, and in any situation that you may find in your life, is to glean opportunities from there. Don't spend your time in despair. Don't spend your time in woe is me. As opposed to spending your time in strategizing how to get out of your situation, or how to at least make things a little bit more comfortable, so where you could deal with dire straits a little better, as opposed to just being in a panic mood, which everybody is. Everybody is in shock right now all over the world for all kinds of reasons. But we do know that whatever is going on in the world today, in one area, is affecting everybody, both as individuals and as human communities. We're all going through a lot right now. So glean opportunities from situations that normally, at least in the beginning, shocks you into a new reality, and try to figure out, how do I make lemonade out of the lemons that have been given. That should always be your mindset. Monachiso, I am one with Chineke. If you accept victory, your chi will ride along with you. It is that belief system that allows you to fight. It is the belief that your chi is strong, that Chineke will bless you if you put in the effort. That's why you keep fighting. That's why you keep trying to come out of a terrible situation or the situation that you find yourself in right now. Think about opportunities. Think about how you could make lemonade with the lemons that we have right now all over the world. And as people of African ancestry, I don't need to tell you that on the continent, we got issues, terrible issues. Most of it has to do with leadership. And what is affecting that leadership? The idea that we have stepped outside of who we truly are and live in somebody else's life just so that we could be accepted in the world community. No, this is an opportunity right now for everybody, both as individuals, to take an inward look inside, look inwardly, get in touch with your chi. And your chi, like a guiding light, will lead you out of the darkness that you may find yourself in right now. Life is not easy. Life is about difficulties. You think about the baby, you think about the zygote in the stomach and the struggles to survive in the mother's womb. And then the struggles to come out of it, to be born. The struggle of birth is a life and death struggle. We as human beings, we've been struggling a long time. It's part of our DNA to fight, to struggle. You struggled in your mama's stomach, and you come out, you're struggling in the world. You struggle to breathe when you first come out. Then you struggle to eat. Then you struggle to crawl or even get on your stomach. Then you crawl. Then you learn how to walk. Then you start going to school. Life is about challenges, and the challenge starts in the womb. And by the time you become an adult, it's assumed that you are now equipped to handle the world. Well, provided you listen to your parents anyway and do the right thing. So there's a caveat in everything, right? Nothing is free. Sort of like, I believe in God. Well, don't jump out of an airplane without a parachute. Put a parachute on. Then when you jump out with God's grace, you might just make it, but at least you increase your chances of making it by putting on a parachute. Same thing with life. Your parachute is your preparation to jump out of that airplane. Same thing in life. Look for opportunities in dire situations because they are there. So I'm supposed to just laying back and saying, woe is me. No. Look for the good in the bad, because life is about good and bad, good and evil. The yin and the yang. One cannot exist without the other. Good does not exist without evil. Evil doesn't exist without good. And if you believe that ChinEke created everything, then you must understand too, from a spiritual perspective, that evil is also a creation for a purpose. There has to be checks and balances. It is said that wars and famine and murder and death, as crazy as it sounds, starvation, is healthy for the human population because it helps to maintain a balance between the population and food supply. And then when you look at human history, you find out that that has held true from the beginning.
Yes.
There's always been plight, conflict, but you learn to deal with these things. These things have a divine purpose. It's painful. If you have a settlement next to a volcano and the volcano erupts and you're wiped out, you're not wiped out because God is punishing you. You got wiped out because you got a village at the base of the mountain. And the volcanic eruption is part of natural phenomenon of creation.
And thank you. Yeah. I'm so. I just wanted to welcome Divya Chair. Continue our conversation. Good morning. Good morning. There, mama.
I didn't notice it while I was talking. I was just talking. And then I
said,
suddenly stopped. I started looking at him. I'm like, this is, yeah. That's why I paused and stopped. It just shocked me.
Yeah. I was enjoying all your talk.
Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah, I was enjoying the incoming.
Yeah, it is true. Because
Mama.
Let me just conclude by saying this. Good and evil is part of life. That's what it's about. Right? You know, our topic today is about AGWUNSI. And I don't know if people understand, but AGWUNSI is also about the good and evil thing. And we'll talk about that later. But the point is, it's not all bad all the time.
Please,
there's always good.
I'll be back. Let me get on my computer. I'll be back.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And UD, in effect, what you're saying is what we're experiencing, right?
Yeah.
It's all part of living.
It's all part
the
of
good will happen, the bad will happen. Yep. How are we dealing with it?
Yes, ma'am.
How we are dealing with it. It's not all going to be rosy.
Yep.
You're going to have to be willing. If you got your, you know, have you ever seen? Try it yourself. If you put a cloth over your eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you go into somebody's house, you're going to be running into things, right?
Yes.
Because you're not familiar.
Yeah, you're not familiar.
That's the bad part. Okay, you're not familiar. It's a strange environment. If you cover your eyes, you know, you don't know which way to go. But if you're in your own home, if I cover my eyes right now, UD, I know exactly how to go up the steps. I know to make a right turn, and I know to make a go straight upstairs. I know to make a left to go into my room, etc., etc. Right?
Yeah.
That's a good thing. You are equipped to manage the good and the bad.
Yes.
In your environment, you're familiar. That's the good.
Yes, ma'am.
In someone else's environment, you're not familiar. So you're going to be running into all kinds of walls and all kinds of things. Yes. So in effect, what we as human beings, wherever we find ourselves, that environment, even with our eyes closed, that our environment is the good aspect of living. That's who we are. We know our way around that. And when we talk about spirituality, our getting around the obstacles is our spirituality. We know it. It's familiar. We know how to use it to get out of trouble. We know how to use it to be where we need to be. But as long as we are holding on to the bad, like I said, is being in an environment that you are not familiar with. And you stay there. And you wonder why things are not working. It's not working because it's not your space. It's not familiar. We need to try UD. You at home, try it. All of you at home. Let me bring Days of the Chedozi in. All of you who are at home, try it. If you cover your eyes, your environment that's familiar to you, you know exactly where to go. A blind man or blind woman in their space know how to maneuver. We need to learn how to maneuver in our own space through our own things. Use our own things, use our own resources, everything around us that's already there, that's familiar. That's what's going to move us forward. But we as individuals have to ask ourselves, am I ready? Am I prepared for my good? I can't look for my good where I'm not familiar.
Yeah.
I have to find the good in my familiar environment and use that to build myself up. Now, there's nothing that says that I cannot go to somebody's house, but I'm not going to go to somebody's house with the cloth over my eyes. I need to be able to see where I'm going. What are they talking about? What are they doing? Let me compare that with who I am. How does that, do you understand what I'm saying? We're not doing that.
We don't have
We're going to spaces that are strange to us and try to tap into it with our eye, with the blinders on. And somehow, as we're stumbling, we say, these people are mean to me. They're doing this to me. They're doing, you're in their space.
Yeah.
But if you're in your space, it's a totally different thing. You're in charge. Life is good and bad. It's bad if you're not functioning based on what's already available to you. What if a ChinEke nyere gị? ChinEke nyere gị ga atụfuo ya, you throw it away, chọrọ ya. How you don't think no ọjọọ ga-ekwere? Somebody tells you it's a bad thing, you say, it's a bad thing. No. But oh yeah, ka ChinEke nyere gị. Oh yeah, ka ChinEke nyere gị. See, where ya birindo le ha ga lebe ịchọ mmiri le ebe ga-eze nwesa mmiri ịchọ nri le hi ga ebe ga-eje nwesa nri le hi tosiri iri ihe niile ahụ. If you want water, this is where you go. If you want food, this is where you go. If you want clothing, this is where you go. Everything that I've given to you is here for your own mama, for your own good. But each other, you know, it's not good enough. Uncle Nyozo. You are good at talking about other people's things, but then nobody knows nothing about you. So you venture into somebody's house and you're stumbling around with the blinders on. I'm saying, in effect, every human being is already blessed. If you're going to go into the environment you're not familiar with, then don't have the blinders on. Be able to ask questions so you can see if you're going the right way, if you're going the right direction. But in your own home, you're familiar. Everything is familiar to you. You go as you please, even with blinders on. That's why a blind man in his own house knows how to go around.
Yeah.
And you're sitting here feeling sorry for him. Oh, poor man, he's blind. No, he sees with his senses. He already is familiar to him.
Like the bat.
Like the bat. It's our spirituality is already familiar. If we will just rediscover it and take the blinders off. You don't need the blinders on in your own home. The blessing's already there. Walk through with pride, with holy boldness. Walk through your environment. I just had to say that because I want to talk about why we're here. Metaphysics, African metaphysics. Everybody has their own concept of how life began. Everybody has their own concept of how to relate to their world. There's no superiority when it comes to that. It just is. It's common sense. It's not a matter of, oh, these people have a better understanding. Like I said, in your own home, you don't need blinders on. And if you do put blinders on, you can move around. But elsewhere, as long as in a chohin dodo, you get fuso. As long as you're stumbling around elsewhere, you will get lost. And what gets lost is not just the environment you're in. What gets lost is your mind. If you don't know, God judge you. If you don't know, ask questions. Do research. Find out the good in your people. I just want my people to understand that we're good enough.
Yeah.
We have enough. We don't have to keep begging. You have meat in one hand and you're begging for. Come on. You got the meat in your hand and you're begging for the bones. And then the person who's giving you the bones will say, okay, if you give me your meat, I'll give you the bones. You give him
So
the
you
meat,
give
he
him
gives
the
you
meat
the
and
bones.
grab the bones.
I'm trying to make analogies here. You know what I'm saying? We got what it takes, and we give it away and get fat and we get thin because we eating the bones and they got the meat.
Yeah.
So the metaphysics of the people. And one of the things that's so important that, people misunderstand. Dibia Chedo's people back me up on this. You back me up on this. African people originally are not sexist. We're not. We know everybody has what they're, and if there's something identified as what your responsibility is, it's not a negative thing. But we value each other. We value each other. And even in our metaphysics, the ontology of being, our own metaphysical ontology, we have energies that are masculine and feminine, and we embrace and respect. The reason why we're here today, we're talking about AGWUNSI. AGWUNSI is part of the hierarchy of the departmentalization of ChinEke, the forces of nature. Why is this important to talk about? Because I, as a woman, I am really tired of hearing, that's how African men are. No. African men are not like that. They learn that behavior. They learn that behavior. Before, you cannot abuse a man's mother and get away with it. No, be so. You don't involve. You cannot insult a man's mother. He will go to war with you. If you can call him anything, but if you open your mouth and say anything about his mother, he'll go to war. You don't talk about my mama, because we value women. We value, and when you value your mother, you value women. Your mother is no different from your wife, in the sense that if you value her, you will value your wife, you will value your daughters. But we have come to remove those values. Like I started earlier talking about, you go to someone else's house, you're stumbling around. So you've forgotten those values that in your own home that you held dear. But now you're stumbling everywhere and you're leaving those things that are precious, are important. You're not embracing them anymore. In African, in our metaphysics, how to be, it's so interesting that in the ontology, Anyanwu, the eyes that see everything, is attributed to ChinEke. And ChinEke has masculine and feminine energy, which is Chi, the masculine energy, Eke, the feminine energy. So that if you want to describe ChinEke, you describe a feminine and a masculine. Feminine and masculine energies. And in our ontology, that's perfectly okay. Nobody cares. Nobody has any problems with that. So you have Anyanwu as the first one. And I'm taking this from the metaphysical background to traditional healing in Nigeria by Ahanke Okonyoha. Okay. He talks about the second is Ofonogu. Ofonogu, truth and justice. You cannot move around and be a part of your community if you're not engaged in truth. They'll call you out. The community will call you out. And they use Ofonogu. They don't put you in jail. They don't stone you. Ofonogu. You are brought to justice. Once you're brought to justice, once you stand in front of somebody with that Ofonogu, you have to speak the truth. Not because they'll beat you, not because they'll torture you, but it's just this spirit. It's the culture of the people to embrace Ofonogu. Now, in some communities, Ofonogu is the gun, the hatchet, the spear. And when somebody has a gun to your head, you will understand to speak the truth. But that's not what we did. And then after you have Ofonogu, then you have AGWUNSI. I want to read that to you. Let me read the okay. Now after the Ofonogu, there is the AGWUNSI. And here's the thing: AGWUNSI is a female spirit whose role is that of linkage between the metaphysical and the physical world. She interprets like a good public relations officer between the two worlds. All traditional healers, particularly the Dibia Obaja, metaphysicians, are under her. Hear what I'm saying, under her. The Igbos, the Africans did not wait, they didn't have any problem with she, he, they didn't. It is what they attributed to AGWUNSI as a she. She's in charge of Dibias. If you're interested in becoming a Dibia, you have to go through AGWUNSI. AGWUNSI has to approve. AGWUNSI takes over your body. And at that moment, you have to be an honest person. You have to do everything that you're instructed to do. And everything you're instructed to do is positive. You cannot steal. You cannot do anything negative. Because if you do, it will turn your world upside down, because AGWUNSI has entered your spirit to direct you to become whatever it is you want to be in terms of a Dibia, the particular Dibia you want to be. And there are several Dibias. I'm not going to go to all of that. But I just wanted to point out the fact that in our spirituality or our metaphysics, male and female are equally important. And AGWUNSI is one of the most important ones. And in the ontology is the third department, so to speak, in charge of the third department. And that is the ability for people to become Dibias, to become healers. There are different kinds of healers. But AGWUNSI is responsible for that. Who's responsible for that? AGWUNSI. And the Igbos have no problem with that. But now, a woman can break kola. You can, okay, I understand the kola part. A woman can do this, a woman can do that. It's because you don't understand. You're in someone else's backyard. You are stumbling around. The fact of your culture, you don't know that everybody has a role. What a powerful role AGWUNSI has. And it's feminine energy. It's feminine. She's in charge of it. If you want to become, a Dibia, a Dibia Obaja or a metaphysician, AGWUNSI gives you that permission by taking over your body, your spirit, and insisting that you do the right things that she has initiated before you can actually go through that. So that whatever your life was, whatever bad things you were doing, you got to put all those things aside and walk on the straight and narrow for you to be allowed to ultimately become a Dibia. I say this to say that we as African people need to return back to our culture, and our culture that embraces everyone, embraces all, embraces nature, embraces each of us, embraces. Ofonogu is attributed to masculine energy. I don't have any problem with that. That is my culture. But when you're talking, as a matter of fact, some people when they talk about the ontology, the last forces are a female on the bottom. That's not true. That's not how it is. You have Anyanwu, then you have Ofonogu, then you have AGWUNSI, then you have Allah. Allah, which we usually put on the bottom, is actually the fourth, according to Ahai, according to his research. on African spirituality and metaphysics. So male and female spirits are important. So if we want to find peace in our community, we need to go into our house and find out, rediscover what's in our house. What makes us a good people? What makes us tolerant people? What makes us get along with each other? What keeps us on the straight and narrow? Those things are so important. But as long as we're rejecting it, as long as we're, and I can't read it, I can't read the whole book to you, but it's all part of the incoming. So that you if you're going to be a dibia in Igbo culture, you have to be on the straight and you don't have quacks. You cannot be a quack. Even though now some people are becoming quacks because they make money off of it, but you didn't go into being a dibia for money, because it's AGWUNSI will not allow you to use that position for anything other than for good. Christianity and European medical practitioners came upon with denigration campaigns against traditional healers, and their practices are superstitious and primitive, unhygienic and dangerous. That's what they attributed to our own metaphysics, and we bought into it. We've left all of that. If you cannot explain to other people anything about yourself, then don't expect them to know anything about you. And even nobody says that his mama's food or her mama's food is nasty. If that's what's nourishing your body, you think it tastes good. If our culture, understanding, nurturing the philosophies that led our ancestors to be peaceful people, our ancestors were peaceful people. They didn't fight over religion. They didn't fight over those things. But look at the world right now. The world is in chaos. And a man can't do, a black man can't do this. A black woman can't do this. A white man can't do this. A white woman can do. A white woman can do this. We have things that we can't do. You can't do. You can't do. We diminish each other. Then we start fighting. You're fighting over the fact that you have diminished yourselves. Now you're trying to come up for air, and to do so, you got to step down on somebody to come up for that air. The intolerance in the world today is what's causing what we are experiencing. The intolerance, the self-denigration. We've degraded ourselves. We've abandoned our true selves. We're embracing other people's way of life at our own expense. We don't love each other. We don't respect each other. Sometimes a black man will see another black man struggling and won't do nothing for him. Or see a woman struggle, a woman see another woman struggling, won't do nothing for him. But don't let him see a dog in need. He'll go after that dog. He'll go and help that dog, but he will not help a human being. This is where we are. And I'm going to end and invite Chiedozie to make his comments. Let's remember one thing. In African metaphysics, nature plays a role, and nature has energies that are feminine and male, masculine and feminine. And when it's brought together, it becomes a powerful force. We see each other as powerful forces. This is what our ancestors believed. Each department having a hold over our conduct, the way we act, the way we embrace our environment, the way we treat each other. But we don't have that now, because we are in someone else's backyard, rummaging through their trash bin, trying to find something that we can add to our own that's already established, that's already in good shape, already okay. But we're scrounging, trying to find what little muscle we can add to what we already have. Dibia Chodezi, your thoughts?
It's been a very beautiful day. Oh, I'm echoing.
No, you're okay.
Okay. Am I okay?
You're okay.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you have your cell phone and computer at the same time with this program?
Yeah, let me check.
Yeah, you got to close it. I'm reverberating myself. I'm reverberating myself.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's still reverberating. I don't know if it's from your end. I don't know.
No, it's not from my end.
Yeah, you sound great. But I you know the way I say something, and then half a second later you hear it.
No, I'm hearing you as you speak.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead. Have it.
I don't know what is causing the echo.
It's okay. Just go along with it.
All right. Today's topic calls across a lot of things, but I take it as a topic that addresses the personality of the African in today's world. That's the way I understand today's topic.
Mm-hmm.
And that is to say, we cannot move forward except we go back to our ontology.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that colonization did was to sweep underground our ontology. That is why I don't like post-colonial. Because the post-colonial means that the colonial is our foundation. That is why in Nigeria we're celebrating October this year, 5 years of independence.
Mm-hmm.
That's an affront. That means we have accepted the hypothesis that our existence began from colonization. That's what it means. It means we have abandoned our traditional metaphysical system and we have accepted imposed one. That is what post-coloniality means. Because with these colonial structures that we have all over Africa, we cannot move forward. I like Africa of today with what Europe was under the medieval period, which is about 500 years ago. Europe was under one umbrella of Roman Catholicism. One religion, Roman Catholicism, one language, Latin, and one history, Roman history, one philosophy, and those years, 1,000 years, when Europe woke up in the Renaissance, they labeled it the Dark Ages of Europe. Because original thinking was not allowed. The same thing is happening in Africa today. So if we are talking about Nigeria, where is the Nigerian philosophy? Where is the Ghanaian philosophy? Where is the Cameroonian philosophy? Where is the Kenyan philosophy? The philosophy is Yoruba, Edo, and so on and so forth. So the irony of our life today is that the ethnic groups that make up the new states in Africa are thousands of years older than colonial states. If we trace our history as African, we number from 25,000 years. Now, how do you use the experience of 65 years to organize the affair of people who are nothing less than 25,000 years and more? That's what it means to live in a colonial enclave. That's what it means to live in a colonial enclave. It means we are using another man's experience to organize our life. So mine is that because you have talked much about the ontology of the African, which is about complementarity, as it is found in our spirituality. So my own is, I want to talk about how do we go back to this ontology. If we have the mindset, I'm sorry to say, this is how I talk and this is how I teach my students here. Because now it's project time, students are coming and they come with all the very fantastic titles that have nothing to do with our culture, have nothing to relate with our environment, so I change it. If you are Igbo, you must go take something from Igbo and then use it to examine something in Western philosophy. If you are Yoruba, you have to go back to your Yoruba and take something from there and use it. Either you are doing comparative analysis, or you're doing a dialogue, or you're doing a criticism. That's how gradually we can move back. So for me, I am not living in Nigeria. I don't have this mindset of Nigeria, because for me, for my PhD period, way back 2000, I discovered it's a colonial structure. So two things we can do immediately. One, peacefully restructure ourselves into a confederation or a true federation, by which each unit of that federation or confederation has its semi-autonomy, the way we used to do it in our traditional time, whereby if you go back to our traditional setting, every family has its semi-autonomy and it relates with other, the extended relation. That's what we have in Africa. Nothing stands alone. One thing connects another and another and another to make a cyclical chain. This cyclical chain is standing on a two-legged foundation that are complementary. And in the middle of these two complementary two foundations, you call duality, is a third angle that connects the two legs. That is how I understand AGWUNSI. And so the AGWUNSI for me is a point of self-realization. Because if you don't understand your AGWU, you don't have self-control. So for you to be Madu, you have to understand your AGWU. And so it is that middle point between our Eke and our Chi responsible for selfhood. So to the extent I have self-mastery is to the extent that I master myself. That I understand my AGWU. And that is why as soon as an Igbo child is born, divination is made or done to understand the AGWU of that child. So that the child will be taught how to navigate through life. And the more the child masters his or her AGWU, the more the child has understanding of self. And the more the child is able to relate with self and others, the community and the cosmos. That's why the AGWU itself is the center of Alpha divination, and is the center of Ogunafo. And that is the role that women play. Women play the role of coordination. So, and we knew traditionally that coordination belongs to women. Even today, with all the mayhem happening in the South, we see the women have stood up again once more. The way they did in 1959, we are talking about how to salvage the Southeast. That's the role of the women. That's the role of when the men are fighting for ego, who is superior. The women will stand up and level them down and tell them that you are the ones that did that to you. So the woman that will call a meeting, whatever they say, the men will do. So we have to understand our today in Africa, and the way to understand it is that we have to operate on our traditional setting. That is my own way of addressing the crisis today. And until we do that, it will be difficult for us as Igbo to relate internally as Igbo. It will be difficult for Yoruba to relate as Yoruba. It will be difficult for ethnic, Ora, any group of African people to relate and understand themselves the way they should. And if we don't understand ourselves as ethnic groups, how then will we now relate and build bridges across and connect other African countries? It will be possible, impossible. And that means that the way the word Ago, Ago goes with the word Ngwo. Yagwojie mma or memma. Yagwojiri njo or putana njo. So that's why Ago is the point where good and bad are regulated. If you understand your Ago, you always triumph for the side of good. And you always learn how to turn adversities into advantages. But if you don't master your Ago, the Ago will always hit the person on the negative lane. And the person will be unable to address his or her destiny. That's what is happening to Africans today. Now, there was a time, that was 3 years ago, those teachers teaching African philosophy, one of them went on sabbatical. So I was seconded to be the second teacher for African philosophy, because here, as it is done elsewhere, up to 2 to 3 or 4 lecturers teach a course, so that no lecturer has absolute control of a course to begin to victimize students. And so one of the arguments against African philosophy is that African philosophy cannot be done in African languages.
What?
And then I hear the African teachers who are expert in African philosophy. They write this in the book, they teach it with vigor, and the argument is that African philosophy is about thought, it's not about language. And I ask, what is the vehicle of thought if not language?
Yeah, how do you transmit it?
How do you transmit it if not language? And so when I went to class, I had to dismantle most of all these teachings. One of the teachings I dismantled was that African philosophy cannot be done in African languages. Why? That who will buy it? Then I said, well, it is because we have accepted to live within the colonial enclave. Yes. And we have accepted to live in it the way it has been handed over to us, without redefining it and restructuring it upon our own traditional ontology. And then I had to take the students' mind back. I said, what is the foundation of the post-colonial? Is the colonial. What is the foundation of the colonial? Balkanization. What was the aim of balkanization? Destruction of the African foundation. What is the African foundation? Ethnicity. Because it is in ethnicity that culture belongs. It is in culture that spirituality, African spirituality belongs.
Yes.
And it's in African spirituality, the African ontology is derived.
Yep.
So once you destroy that foundation of ethnicity, and then you begin to talk about detribalized, de-ethnicized, it's only in Africa that we use such words. In Europe, they are not de-ethnicizing. They are going back into their ethnic foundation.
Yep, true.
In America, The only people that do not understand the ethnicity are the African Americans. The name African American is a mass burial, mass grave. The Europeans knew, the European from Ireland know that he has a rich background. The one from Germany knows that he has German background. And which of the German part of Germany, they know. The ones from England, they know, like the man who sang, I'm an Englishman in New York. He didn't say, I'm a British man in New York, he said, Englishman in New York. When we watch WrestleMania, you don't hear Drew McIntyre from Britain. It's Drew McIntyre from Scotland. Yep. Gentleman Prince Adam is not from Britain, from England. You don't hear of, what's the name of this guy? He's from Ireland. Well, he said Becky the Lynch from Ireland. Not even when it's from Britain, it should be Northern Ireland. They call it Ireland. The one from Wales will say from Wales.
Yeah.
So it's the only in Africa we talk about African American. And so when you see the African fight, they just say so from Nigeria. Nigeria is a mass burial because what it represents is a colonial structure, which was why when we in 1999 at the year 2000 or was it 1994, we went to invite Fela to come to talk to us on the platform of PAMON, Pan-African Movement of Nigeria. He's here to talk to students in the university. He shook his head and said he wasn't coming. He didn't say university, he's called it university. I strained my ear, I said, Fela, please, once more. He said, university. I said, once more. University. I said, explain. He said, he will not come to university, the place that they took Alpha, locked it up in an iron cage with a huge padlock that you cannot break, then took the key and threw it into the ocean.
It's like a waste of his time.
So he says, meaning that what we are pursuing the university are other people's cultures, other people's thought system.
Exactly.
And we can never prosper by it.
I agree.
So I didn't quite understand it then, but as I've moved on, I now understand it clearly. It's exactly what we are saying today.
Yes.
So
socialization.
And then it is unfortunate that in our own country called Nigeria, we don't even understand this at all. Places like Ghana, they understand it. They are trying to address it. So you see that in Ghana, like when I was in Ghana, I criticized William Abraham's cultural essentialism. Take what is essential from Fanti culture, what is essential from Ashanti culture, what is essential from Ewe culture, what is essential from Ga culture, what is essential for Balt culture, and so, and assembled it to build a new Ghana. I said, you are drawing water, bailing water from well into an endless chasing, and the bottom is basket.
Yep, it will leak.
You can never build a colonial society successfully. The best you can do, grant your Ghana already, you people have a democratic system. The voter region wants to secede from Ghana. You can stop that by granting each ethnicity its semi-autonomy. Instead of talking about Western region, Northern region, that one, Fanti region, Ashanti region,
that's who they are.
Region.
They're not
and let each one be responsible for its own affair.
Yep.
Then the traditional leaders will be the substantive leaders. The political leaders will be holding power on their behalf. The role of the political leaders will be to run economy. When you're talking about politics, it is in the hands of the traditional people.
Yeah.
That's the way it's done in Japan.
Yeah.
That's the way it's done in Iran. The substantive leader is the Shah of Iran, not even the prime minister. If you go to Israel, you have the prime minister, but you have the rabbi group. What they say is the final.
That's it. The spiritual conscience, the conscience of the people.
Spirituality form the foundation. So when we come to Nigeria, you can have, instead of this, just call it, if you don't like the name Biafra, call it Igbo region. That one, Benin region. This one, that one region. Or zone.
It has a name.
Yeah. So when you call it that, let the people operate on their culture. So now, a place like Finland, 6 million people, they read and write in Finland. Then the Igbo that are over 60, 70 million people cannot read and write in Igbo. Yoruba that are over 60, 50 million people, 50 to 60, 80 million people cannot read and write in Yoruba. There is no ethnic group in Nigeria that is not over 5 million. They cannot read and write themselves. Like Fela said, if you don't buy ourselves and sell ourselves, who will sell us? Who will buy us? So the question of African metaphysics is pointing to the today's topics, pointing to the malstructure we have today. And so one thing I teach my students, I don't mince word about it. You cannot relate with another if you are not sitting on your foundation. The common adage among the dibia is n'ugwu mere mgbọrọgwụ osisi akwara ochichi ji achara ha n'okpuru ala ka a na-etu nri maka ọganihu. The root of every tree knows the nutrient of the soil it's looking for, and it does not debar the other root of another tree from sourcing the kind of nutrient it wants under the soil. So even when they meet, they create chances for themselves. They cooperate. They complement.
It's enough for everybody.
It's enough for everybody. There on the underground, you see trees, the root of trees. They don't block themselves. They create avenues, tentacles for themselves. And so there's connection. And so these questions that we cannot relate in Africa is because we are not sitting on our ontology. If we are sitting on our ontology, the Igbo will see the connect between she and the Efik, the Ibibio, the Edo, the Ora, the Yoruba, and ad infinitum. And no one can do this for us except us. Because if you leave the colonialists, they want us to maintain the structure the way they handed over to us. And when they say, what we need is education. And so more books from Paris, more books from England, more books from America, more books from Russia, more books from that. So we're learning about the socialism, Leninism, and so on and so forth. All the isms that are flying in the air, and they germinated. They are trees that germinated in other people's soil. So for a tree to germinate well, it must find its own culture. Because the soil, the texture of the soil of a tree is the culture of that tree. And if you remove the tree from its texture of the soil, its culture, and transplant it to a texture of soil that is not its culture, it does not do well. That is the problem Africans have today, and it has to be addressed.
That's it. Thank you. Yudi, you want your thoughts?
Yeah,
thank you, Dibia. That's wonderful.
Not too much details, because Dibia doesn't really cover the whole lot of stuff.
Yes,
of course, in the beginning, you just went off and pretty much ended the show before it even started. So kudos to both of you. Just a couple of things. You have brought it up, and Dibia Dozie had brought that up too, right? When he was talking about Fela, and Fela went to he was invited to speak at the university, and he felt that the university represented pouring water into a basket. It's no use. The structure of the university does not promote his kind of lecture or what it is that he's going to try to speak to the students about. They don't recognize that. Dibia also talked about the fact that somebody said that our story is not sellable, right? You can't tell it in our own language, which begs the question, exactly which school or university did these people attend where in their mind they think that you can't tell a story because it's not written in Igbo. And even if I write it in Igbo, whose alphabet am I using to write it? Because the Igbo that we know when it's written is A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way to Z. It's the pronunciations and all that kind of stuff that is different. But you're using the same thing. So there's nothing Igbo about writing Igbo. It's like writing Arabic using English letters and then coming out and claiming that you're writing in Arabic. No, the Arabs have their own symbols, writing system. So does the Japanese. So does everybody who is telling their own story is telling their own story in their own language, because that is the first step in selling it to your own people, to make them recognize and realize that this is their stuff. this miseducation of Africans, I mean, across the spectrum, in the university, the way we perceive education and what it is that we're being taught. You mentioned it, and that reminds me, of course, and then also an African, not African, a Black American, they put it that way. A Black American guy, his name is Dr. Henrik Clark. And Dr. Henrik Clark says, like he always says, okay, Dibia, and Dibia Chiedozie alluded to it. We tell somebody else's story very well, but we haven't told our own story. People don't know about African stuff because nobody's telling it. It's not coming out of anywhere, in a structured manner. The only time you hear about our African stuff is when we are protesting. The idea that people think that African culture has no relevance in our development or in the world committee. Like African culture is some kind of one-off, like no other nation has its own culture. No other nation was built by its own spiritual culture. Talking about African spiritual culture seems to be a one-off. It's like you're saying something new that has never been heard before, or nobody has ever done it. Well, what do you think the pagans did? Zeus. It's all part of that culture. What you see in Italy, in Rome today, even through the Catholic Church, came out of paganism. That's it. That's where it came out of. That's the way the world works. Every culture has its own ontology. All of them. In Christianity is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And somewhere along the line, there you got all these saints. You look at the Old Testament, you talk about Abraham, you talk about Moses, you talk about this, you talk about that, all that stuff. They're all part of the spiritual makeup of their holy book. You go to India, they have their own ontological structure. All of them do, as long as you are religious. If you understand what religion means in its etymology, it simply means a duty that a person feels compelled to perform in reverence to something greater than oneself, and that something is the Almighty ChinEke. That same idea works in Christianity, in Islam, in Buddhism, in all religions that believe in a creator. They all have traditional ontologies. So there's nothing about African traditional ontology that is a one-off, that should be something that is scary. It's what everybody else does. All the nations that are great today, or we hacken to be great, all observe their culture, their spirituality. It is paramount. Tourism is the biggest industry in the world. And what is tourism about? It's about nature, it's about religion and culture. That's it. That's what it's all about. But somewhere along the line, we have been socialized into thinking that there is no value in our own ontology. Us doing what everybody else is doing that maintains a certain status in this world today as people that are culturally relevant, as people that contribute something to civilized behavior. We are nowhere to be found. We can't sit on the same, at the same table with other cultures and proudly beat our chest and proclaim ours, just like they proclaim theirs too. AGWUNSI is part of the ontological structure, and I think it's the third in line from Anyamu, the eyes of ChinEke, hearken to the head of ChinEke, to Ofonogu, truth and justice. And the next level is AGWUNSI, that deals with good and bad. And somewhere along the line, Ikenga is associated with all these things. AGWUNSI is associated with good and evil. It's the yin and yang of life. It is the crossroads where you have to make a decision as to who you are spiritually and what avenue that you're going to pursue. AGWUNSI is part of the Igbo saying, "Ime mainatama ime njo inatanjo." Dibia Chiedozie just alluded to it too in this summation. It's about the good and evil. It's a powerful force. It brings you fortune, good health, creativity, but it can also bring you sickness. It can also bring you all kinds of misfortune and erratic behavior. You can even go mad. It depends on where you are on the spiritual spectrum And as you are nurtured as a baby, you're lost. And knowing yourself is knowing your ikenga. And knowing your ikenga, which you know will lead you to the hallmarks of your akaraka, which is your destiny. AGWUNSI is all part of that. It is the, how do you say, that's your crossroads. This is where you make a decision. How do you fit in? The good or the bad? It's a terrible thing when you think about it. When we talk about good and we talk about evil. And we say, oh, if I pray, there will be no evil. No, you're wrong. You don't understand this spirituality thing. You don't understand ChinEke. You don't know how this whole thing works. There is no good without evil. There is no evil without good. There is no woman without man, no man without woman. There's no left hand without the right. There's no short without tall people, no tall without short, no fat without skinny, no skinny without fat. That's the way it works. Yin and yang. The spiritual part of your existence and the physical part of your existence. One cannot do without the other. If you're a physical being and you have no conscience, what are you? You're even less than an animal. You're nothing. You can't have the spirit without the body because the spirit came from that. That's your journey through life. Before you became a spirit, then you're back again to do this cycle all over. It's about coming and going. There is nothing wrong with what we do spiritually in African metaphysics that other nations don't do. The only difference is the way we were socialized in our educational system, where we were socialized and educated to see no value in anything African. And that's why we are in the position that we are in today, where we can't unite as a people, where we can't chart the same cause as a people, where we don't see each other as one, where we don't understand that we as people of African ancestry face the same treatment from all groups in the world. Look at the African the same way. They don't care if you're Jamaican. They don't care if you're from Nigeria or Ghana or Zulu in South Africa. They don't care if you were born in Ireland, Britain, or a Blackanese. They don't care if you are in South America, Jamaican, Haitian. Nobody cares. All they see is this African. And you're looked upon the same way, treated the same way, assumed that you have no spirituality. Assume that your culture is evil. Assume that you must be socialized into the same culture of those people that continue to take away our freedoms. We have to really look inside, understand African spirituality.
Yes.
Accept it as part of who we are and what we are before we were resocialized, before we were colonized, before slavery. Go back to who we really were before. That is our problem. And Fela is right.
And
it's a waste. You go talk to people sometimes and you just kind of put your hand on your head and just go, you know what, what's the point? And I think that's just how Fela, felt. So my point real quickly is simply this. We tell somebody else's story. We haven't told that story yet. Every religion, every culture has its own traditional ontology. Nothing different from what we're trying to impart upon our audience. And those people listening out there, that it's time to look inward so that we could do the first necessary thing, which is to unite us all under a common cultural, spiritual focus. Cheers.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You know what? One of the key things here is when we talk, like when DBH Dozier discusses AGWUNSI, it depends on, is it from a spiritual perspective or is it from healing perspective? Do you understand? Those may sound different, but it just tells you that we as Africans, we take from our own cosmology, from our own metaphysics, it to serve us in all the different aspects.
I think we're having.
Can you?
Yeah, we're having.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. And okay, now you're frozen. Then you're not frozen. It's kind of weird. But keep going. Let's see what happens.
Now,
yeah, keep
before
going.
you guys said that was a lot of huh?
Yeah, you're just freezing. Intermittent and freezing.
I'll say what I'm going to say. I think something is with my environment here. And I'm frozen again.
Well, keep talking. I'm hearing you right now. Just
I'm frozen
going.
again?
No, you're fine right now. Keep
okay
going.
now.
Okay, well.
Keep going.
Okay, so what I was saying is that we still use the ontology of being, but we apply it differently depending on what particular area of human endeavor that we want to apply it. We apply it to healing, we apply it to education, but it's still there. We still have the same ontology, only interpreted a little bit differently to suit whatever particular endeavor we're in. Let me just read something very quickly about history, why history is so important. History is not just a word thrown around. History is rich in establishing what makes you who you are. If you don't go into your history, you lose certain things that explains why you're the way you are, why you act the way you are, why you eat what you eat, why you go where you go. History is philosophy teaching by examples of what has happened in the past. Let me read this. History is the study of the past events. That's what it is.
Yes.
So if you don't know your history, you don't know past events. You don't know what happened to your people and why you're where you are today. It encompasses a wide range of topics, including the rise and fall of civilizations, wars, political movements, cultural developments, and social changes. Historians analyze primary and secondary sources to interpret and understand how past events shape, present, and influence the future. The study of history helps us learn from past successes and mistakes, providing insight into human behavior and social development. So if you don't know your history, you have no concept about what I just read. And half of us can't tell you. Half is a lot, but half of us can't tell you our history and the significance of it. But I can tell you the history of other people. There are some of us who know the history of other people, how they came to be, how they act the way they act. But you don't know why you are where you are. So for when we talk about the metaphysics, it's very, very important because that's what explains to us. Now, certainly there's diversity in that. But you always have to, if you want to explain something, sometimes you have to start from what you know. And then you generalize it. I was raised an Igbo woman. When I was growing up, I was raised understanding, thank God for my parents, understanding Igbo culture, Igbo history, even the diversity in Igbo culture. But what we have is what is actually holding us back, that lack of understanding. We're not here trying to say to anybody that your way is bad and our way is the right way. We're just asking you to reevaluate who you are. Take the, if you're going to be in someone else's backyard, take the blinders off and make sure there are no nails on the floor on the ground that you're going to step on. Make sure there are no dangers waiting for you. But if you know your history, you know exactly where to go. You know where the dangers are. You know what your people did. You know how they overcome. Let's say if you want to know how strong you are, you ask yourself, how did I get over it? How did I, if this situation comes up again, how did I do it before? How did I get over it? We're never weak. Anytime you have an issue and he raises his head again, how Jesus did it. Not because you want to be isolated, not because you don't want to be with the rest of the world. But nothing is new. There's nothing the eye sees that will cause it history. They put plastic, or rather they pour soap on plastic. All right, you have team A, you have team B. Same thing. They pour what do you call it? Soap on the plastic. Now, what you have to do is very slippery, and then they pour water on it. What you have to do is get from point A to point B. You have a competitor. So the person who gets to the end of the plastic of the runway, if I may call it that, okay, gets an opportunity to put something in a pot or a pail or something, and goes back and tags the next person, and they keep doing it. I observed one particular young woman in this game. She watched her partner was just killing and falling, killing and falling, killing and falling. But every time it was her turn to go, she didn't fall. She will get to the end and she'll come back. She never fell. But when her partners will come, everybody helter-skelter. They're slipping, they're carrying on, they're slipping, they're carrying on. That's history that she's watching. How they fell, what caused them to fall, and what does she need to do so she doesn't fall. That's what history teaches you, what people did in the past, how they overcame challenges, so that you know what not to do or what to do. What she learned was that the person that she was competing with was digging, as she moved, she was digging her toenails into the plastic. She wasn't just trying to walk. She walked with her toenails dug into the plastic, which kept her anchored. It kept her from falling. She just kept watching that. So whenever it was her turn, she did the same thing that the challenger was doing and not falling. So every time she came, every time she went, she came back, she went, she came back. The other people were not falling. They kept going through without falling, and that's because they learned how to dig into the plastic. What am I saying? History tells you what works, how you can win. You see what other people did, what your ancestors did, and won. But if you want to just do it helter-skelter, not paying attention to what worked in the past, you will keep falling. You will keep tripping all over yourself. And those who follow the history, those who pay attention, they're the ones that go up and they come back. And while you are there all over the map, falling up and down. History is a guide to the future and learning from the past. When they tell you that African people are primitive, you have to ask, where did civilization start? Who gave the world some of what the world is enjoying? Like the smelting of iron. The ships, the great ships that sailed to North America and South America, Black people built all those things. They developed a lot of what the world is experiencing, is enjoying today. But if you're not paying attention, if you're not looking at your history and what your people have achieved, you think you're not good enough. So you'll be begging, like I said earlier, you got the meat in your hand and you're begging for the bones. And you are willing to switch because you don't value. And when you don't study, when you don't look at history, that's what you got. You see what I'm saying? So for our people all over the world have a right to grow. People all over the world have the right to be recognized as human beings. But you cannot ask for that recognition when you don't recognize it yourself. If you don't like yourself, why should anybody like you? It's like power. Power is not given. Power, you have to actually earn the power, or you got to grab the power. It's not handed to you. So if you want respect, if you want growth, you have to get it. You have to look at what got your people where they were in the past. Take some of that. You have to change it. But you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Look at your past, get from it, use it to build. That's the way I see it. And quite frankly, Dibia Chedozie, I'm going to tell you this. Reason why Nigeria is going in the direction we're going is because we don't study history. Our children don't learn history. They don't. What do they learn? Through the whatever. But very few. And I remember when I did go to school in Nigeria, I learned about Mongo Park, Usman Danfodio. I learned about everything. But I could tell you, I did not learn anything about African history from the school when I was a child. I don't know you, but I didn't. You did you? You just is frozen.
Yeah.
What's going on? No, you did.
Yeah.
Dibia, did you hear what I said?
Say it again. You were kind of frozen. I couldn't quite get it. What were you saying?
That I was saying that when I was in school, I didn't study African history.
Yeah, I didn't either.
In Nigeria. I didn't.
We did a little Usman Danfodio.
That's what I
but remember, those were all Muslim heroes. Had nothing to do with Africa.
Danfodio.
Yeah, those are Muslim heroes. That's why we knew about them.
Well, what I'm saying in effect is the closest we came to learning about African spirituality was Things Fall Apart.
Yeah,
African culture was things other than what our parents taught us.
Yeah, true.
You know?
Agreed.
Pardon me.
At least when we were growing up.
So because of that, we have generations of people who don't learn their history. And because they haven't learned their history, they don't know the good in their history. They don't know the power in their history. They are learning new things that teaches them something completely contradictory. That's why the women don't respect the men don't respect the women, and because that is something we are learning elsewhere. It's not it's not our history. So anybody who tells us all these that this is what a woman can do, or this is what a man can do, and all that stuff, and that's something that God said to do. No. God had nothing to do with that. That's something you learned from somewhere else. Yudi, Dibia Chedozie, Yudi, you just spoke. Dibia Chedozie, go ahead.
Well, I love
Dibia
your
Chedozie, go ahead.
Yeah, I like your definition of history because as an ontologist, I do not just see history as events. I see history as human consciousness unfolding, the unfolding of human consciousness. And if we come down to the analysis of the human mind, history has to do with the human memory. And so the more we know about our history, the more we are conscious of ourselves, because the memory is what you call the inner sense, time. And that's because when we perceive the world, or when we sense the world, when we feel the world, our senses give us information about the world. It is memory that packages all that we gather through the senses in serial connection, sequence, and that is responsible for past, present, and future. If we have the capability of going outside our body, for as long as we are outside our body, there's no before, now, and after. Everything is known at once. And that's the function of reason, imagination, and understanding. Because imaginatively, we can project into the future. We can try to know at once. But once we're in this body, imagination is limited. Reason is limited. Understanding is limited. Because the three faculties of the human mind have to feed on the memory. And the memory can only function by arranging things in sequence. That's why it's called the inner sense, time. And every human knowledge must pass through time. So history is about the human memory. So for me, history is what we live now. History is consciousness unfolding, is alive. It is my being now. And that my being now is tied to my holistic existence, to the extent I am rooted in my past, which has to do with my culture. So if we link that to the question of Agwo, the why Agwo, when we take Agwo to the human psychiatry, human understanding, if you are channeled to the right history, the history of your people, then you stand within that foundation of the history of your people to connect other people's history. You'll become enriched. And then you resolve problems within yourself. And the more you resolve more problems within yourself, the more you grow stronger. That process is known as dialectics. And then the more you are able to reconcile the divide between evil and good, and that is known as hermeneutics. But if you are rooted on the wrong history, then you suffer the loss of one who has lost control of his or her own Agwo. That's the problem with Africans today. We are rooted in other people's knowledge, other people's history. So we are not masters of our own chi. And so we cannot also guide our Eke where I should go, because the Agwo is in disarray. And once the Agwo is in disarray, not properly channeled, the Eke and the Chi can never be connected. So that's why we talk about the estranged African personality. And what that simply means, historically speaking, we are sitting on other people's foundation. And knowledge is a wonderful thing. The knowledge of 100,000 years, the knowledge of 1 million years, the knowledge of 1 billion years can be taught to generations born in 21 years. When we start from kindergarten and the mothers sing lullabies to the children, our African mothers did not just sing lullabies, they sang lullabies of history, lullabies of communal song, of sorrows and happiness in the family, in the community, in the history of the clan, the history of the town, the history of the kingdom. They start singing these to the children whilst they were infants. And you think these things are not coding. Even before they were born, prenatally, the women lived in their community. Whatever happened in the community, the folk songs, the activities, all were encoded in the children's mind, even prenatally. So even prenatally, from 5 months, when the child begins to make movement in the woman's womb, the child's mind was being trained historically. And so when the child is born, the child continues in that trajectory, and you'll find that from that moment to when the child goes through age grade, and the child goes from one age grade to another age grade, he's been taught the history of the people. And age grade is rolling from future to past to the future. So that we are born, we get initiated until we, through mortuary rites, we exit. So we see that history is alive. And so in 21 years, the knowledge of 1 million years can be taught to children. But if we want to get the Agwu well directed, it is good that this history is rooted in our own culture. And we start from our culture and we begin to extend to other people's culture. And by the time we extend to other people's culture, we are bound to meet contradictions, things that don't agree with our culture, things that don't agree with our history. Then we begin to reconcile them. The more we reconcile these contradictions within our own culture, the more our culture grows and becomes more formidable. And that's why, again, these three departments of knowledge must always move pari passu: philosophy, history, and language. Because every discipline has its thought system, which is philosophy. Every culture has its system of ideas, that's their philosophy, their ontology. Then it must be expressed in the language of the people. Then it must have its time trajectory, that's the history. So these three must be realized pari passu within the culture of the people and form the personality of the people. But insofar as in Africa, these three are alienated, the history we learn is foreign history. The language in which we learn the history is foreign.
It's foreign. That's right.
And the thought system, the historiography of the history, and the philosophy of the language, linguistics, they are all foreign. And so each time I finish writing a piece of paper, like this particular program is going on, I'm crying inside. And I'm crying inside because we are speaking English to teach what is African. By now, we should be able to have come up with devices which are there, which you can harness, such that if I speak in my own Igbo language, other Africans will hear me. They will understand me in their own language. It is possible. But we're not thinking towards that direction. So everything we are doing for now is that we are reporting ourselves to our colonizers. Every piece we write is that we are translating our culture, our rich world, into foreign language. So the thought system, our thought system, we are teaching it in foreign language. And so this problem of Agwu will keep troubling us. And we know that, like Okedibi and Dibia Ochaja said, we have to marry our Agwu. Because if Agwu is female, the whole essence of Dibia is that you must marry your Agwu and marry her well. And you know, if you marry as a man, if you marry your wife well, she will so cooperate with you that if you give her 1,000 naira, she will use it to pay you back 10,000 naira or more. And people who don't understand will think that you gave her love portion. They won't know that you just married her well and you understand her well. Yep. So we have to learn how to marry our Agwu, and that's what we are talking about. Because that's the whole thing about history, philosophy, and language. They must be well married. And the only place we can solve it is that Agwu. The day we are able to solve this, then we'll begin to move forward instead of backwards. For now, we are moving backwards. And like our people say, and like fellas will say, now back with the take worker, soldier don't put everybody for reverse.
Yeah, I remember the song. let me just
you are so right. You're so right. And then I'll let you speak. You're so right. If truthfully, the day that African people will see the good in them, the good in their past, and they will see the good in their future, they will see that it's not going to be anybody that would work this magic for us. We're, like I said, we already have, it's already done. It's already done for us. The biggest problem is that we're not, now I'm going to talk to parents right now. If the African African culture, African people are going backwards, like you said, Dibia Chedozi, it's the parents doing it. Sorry. We, the parents, are the reason why our children are not moving forward, because we're not teaching them to know. We're letting them be taught by people who don't have their best interest at heart. They don't teach them what is necessary to move them forward. So our children, it becomes cyclical, generational. Our children are not learning what's good about them. You know, let me tell you a tradition I started recently. I have 2 daughters, because my son I see today. My daughter, old girl, is in California. My youngest is in Florida. Then I have a niece here who I take in as my child, because her mom is in Spain. So I used to, she used to live with me when she was younger, when, you know, so I have my heart for her, for my daughter. Often they call when they want to and all that. There's no consistent calling, you know. So I said, well, maybe they didn't learn that from me. They didn't learn the importance of calling family every day. If not every day, every other day. So I started this little thing. I created these little sayings that I sent to them. And I asked them, hey, this is mom, just checking in. What's up? What's going on? Hope you guys are well. Just the family, you know, family checking up on each other, right? And I started doing this more and more frequently. So now what are they doing? Without me telling them, they're sending the same thing back to me. Every week I get from my daughter, I get from Nat Kelly, I get from Nene. Just checking in. They're just checking in because that's what I do to them. I say, I'm just checking in. So now they're doing it. We parents have to check in on our kids. See what is it they know, what they don't know. And 9 out of 10 times, what they don't know, it's our fault. Because it's us that really are trying to teach them how to be other people, because we are ashamed of who we are. So we don't want them to be like us. It's going to hurt, but it's the truth. We've assimilated. We, the parents, have assimilated, and we want them to assimilate even more. So what we teach them, we take them to these fancy schools where they learn how to dress with their ties and you know, how to look smart. They call it looking smart. They have their little jackets. They have their tie on. They have their socks for the girls. And the boys have this knee-high socks. And they're looking smart. Who's teaching them that? What are we teaching them? What are we teaching them? We're not teaching them to wear African clothing and explain to them the importance of that African clothing they're wearing. When you tell some kids get mad if you give them fufu. I don't want to eat that. What is that thing? So we give them scrambled eggs and sausage and all that. I remember one of my nieces that just didn't want to speak Igbo. She came to this country speaking Igbo, and then she didn't want to speak that thing.
I know exactly who you're talking about, too.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when we you know what I'm saying? Oh, I don't speak that thing, no. What?
The African European. Oh my God.
I don't speak that thing. And I'm speaking to her, and she's looking at me. I don't speak that thing. What is that thing? I don't speak that Igbo. Oh, what do you speak now?
And she had number 7 years old.
And she was, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh my God. You know, but here's the point I'm trying to make. Our history is important. However you demarcate it, the important thing is that we have a responsibility to show our children how it was, how it is now, and where they should be going tomorrow. If you don't know your past, you don't know where you question your present, and you have no clue where you're going in the future. So we parents need to reassess what we're teaching our children when they are little. That's when we should start. A lot of them that have gotten assimilated, so to speak, it's kind of difficult to pull them away from that. But when you have a brand new baby, you have to ask yourself as a parent, what direction you want this child to go? What do you want that child to learn? If you want that child to learn, if you want her to speak Igbo, she'll speak Igbo. If you just want her to speak English, that's all she's going to know. If you're not choke off, what we seek social difference. So you start that with your child. What do you want? What do you seek for your child? There's nothing wrong, important for that child to know about her people, about who they are. I get so excited. Well, I get so excited when I see that, like, the Native Americans. Have you seen Native American kids learning how to do the powwow?
Yeah.
The dance?
Yeah, I've seen that.
You did? I'm asking you.
Yeah, I did. I'm talking.
Okay.
Can't you hear me?
I'm frozen?
Can you hear me?
Oh, I couldn't hear you.
Oh.
When they're learning that, there's a reason why the parents are teaching them, taking them back. Show them. And I can hear you.
Oh.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So we need to go back to teaching. Okay, go ahead, UD. I don't think you heard what I said, but go ahead.
No, I heard you say, so we need to go back to theism or something. Oh, okay. Well, I won't take too long because I know we're out of time. Just briefly back to the topic that we're discussing today, AGWUNSI. And it's a deity that it's both good and evil, right? It's a yin and yang kind of thing. And it's a powerful force, that brings fortune, good health, creativity and all that. But you can also get misfortune like sickness, erratic behavior, the kind of stuff that is going on in African communities now, all that confusion, and all of a sudden your mind is not in the right place for development. Einstein said that the true definition of civilization is not technological know-how or economic opulence, but when two people can see eye to eye, tolerate each other, and defend to death the right of the other person to survive. Therein lies the true definition of civilized behavior. That is part of the good part of AGWUNSI. The bad part of AGWUNSI for us as individuals, as a community, as Africans, is the condition of Black folks in the world today. Some years ago, I can't remember exactly where I saw it, but there was this Afghan Sufi, this holy man, and said something that was profound, very African, very chaste. And he says, and we talk about that on this program all the time. And he said that he was searching for God. And all he saw was himself. Then he started looking at himself and he saw God. Madubuchi Bear, the God you seek, is right here. It's not something in the sky. And the reason why, according to him, and this is something that I share philosophically, I say, cheers, the reason why we're like out of this equilibrium is because we're something else. And we don't understand how this whole thing works. So if you put a seed in the ground, that seed becomes a plant. And when it becomes a plant and you look at the plant, you don't see the seed. But as the process continues, at some point in time, you end up seeing the seed in the heart of that plant, and the cycle begins all over again. We, as people of African ancestry, don't understand this idea that Madubuchi Bear, the ChinEke, the God you're looking for, is right here. And the reason why we don't seem to be getting the blessings from ChinEke like we're supposed to is because we're thinking about something else. We're thinking that the ChinEke is somewhere else. We haven't invited ChinEke in where ChinEke belongs, which is right here. But we are the, how do you say, we are the ones putting this blinders, this fence between us and ChinEke when there is no fence at all. There is no separation. If we as people of African ancestry understand that part of our relationship with this deity and the responsibility that we have to glean the good part of it, more than the negative, the bad part, the mental issues and all that stuff that we are suffering as a people. Since colonization and slavery, ChinEke has taken a step back because ChinEke is right here, but we don't see it because somebody has told us that ChinEke is somewhere else. So we leave what we're supposed to be focusing on and we're somewhere else. So as long as we keep running from ourselves spiritually, we will never succeed as Africans, as people of African ancestry. And like we've always talked about on this show, it's time for us to revisit our history, get it taught to us the right way, change the educational system, change the conversations that we're having in our homes, in the schools, in the bars, wherever we are, in our public, forums. We have
help our children. Help our children
so that we can understand that there is nothing evil about African spirituality and understand this AGWUNSI relationship of good and evil. And if you don't pay attention to your AGWUNSI like you're supposed to, if you're not indoctrinated into it from the time you were born, you're going to end up on the opposite side of it. Because either way, you're going to receive karma from AGWUNSI, good or bad. It's up to us. And that's my 2 cents.
Yes. Yes. It's up to us. Everything is up to us when all is said and done. Thank you. Absolutely, Yudi. That is the whole purpose of this conversation today is when all is said and done, revisit your metaphysics, revisit your spirituality. Your metaphysics is connected to your spirituality, depending again on what in particular you're working with. But discovery, self-discovery is so critical to self-growth. If you don't know where you've been, you can't explain why you're where you are now, and you don't know the direction to go tomorrow. Okay? Forward thinking always, but always remember what history is supposed to teach you. History is supposed to teach you where you've been, where you are, where to go. All of us have different definitions of, based on what we've read, but when all is said and done, the whole important aspect of history is to direct you where you need to be in the future. Where we need to be as a people in the future right now is that we need to be a little bit more self-dependent. We shouldn't cry when things are taken from us. We should be able to know whenever something happens to us, how to recover from it. Okay, and to look to what we've had, what our ancestors did to find how to solve some of our problems. And I'm not saying the ancestors got it all right. You know, they made mistakes too, but they did some things right. And we need to go back, revisit it. And it's not something that's overnight. It's going to take generations, but it is something. It's a journey that we must start. And we must start it in our homes, where it's started individually, before we can reach out to the community. Each one of us has to reevaluate where we are, what we believe, and how we can share what we believe with the community. On that note, gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm so sorry that I say this to the individuals who are watching, wherever you are. We do apologize that we have had some, I think it was 2 weeks we were gone from Cheerism Live because of so much. And it's all good. It's all good. You know, we've just had so much that we've had to do. And we're back again. We're back again. All right. So thank you for joining us. UD, thank you. As always, Dibiache Dozier, thank you for joining us. And I look forward to seeing both of you on Sunday. And all of you, be sure to join us next Sunday. Yeah, guys.
And I'm getting ready for the Super Bowl.
And
we're coming over.
Okay, yeah, then we got to get ready for Super Bowl.
As soon as I hang up, we're coming over. All right. See y'all later.